does. Is he just doing that because he told me, I told him to? Because what I really wanted was to feel desired. I
Yes.
didn't want to just say, like, why do you desire me? I wanted
Uh-huh.
them to just naturally be attracted to me like a magnet.
You're listening to Get Your Marriage On, the fun and spicy podcast bringing you new tools and fresh ideas so that you can be the sexiest couple you know.
The thing that stood out to me the most in this interview you're about to hear is how important it is to focus on being our best selves if we want to fix our marriage, and how important it is to shed our egos. And when we're married, we signed up to love our spouse, meaning to be their champion and cheerleader, not their critic. Laura Doyle is the New York Times bestselling author of several books, including The Empowered Wife. She's also the star of the Amazon Prime series Empowered Wives. Her books have been translated into 19 languages and published in 30 countries. Over 15,000 women credit her with not only saving their relationships, but also showing them how to become desired, cherished, and adored for life. She is the founder of the Laura Doyle Connect, an international relationship coaching company that teaches women the intimacy skills they need to have passionate and peaceful relationships. Laura lives in Newport Beach, California with her hilarious husband, John, and they've been married for 30 years. Laura, it is such an honor to have you on the podcast this morning. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really delighted to be here.
One thing I love about you, it's your book, Empowering Wives. You have an Amazon Prime show. You have your campus where you actually teach in person. You've helped tens of thousands of women how to empower themselves and like really fix their marriages. But I think what's funny is you almost got divorced yourself. But I want to hear that story. Can you tell me that story?
Sure. I'll just tell you that embarrassing story of how I kind of messed up my own marriage. Like every bride, I started out thinking like, oh, he's so handsome and smart and funny and talented. And then just a few years in, I saw some things, Dan, that I thought, well, I can help him improve
Oh, right.
this.
Of course.
I'm going to show him how to be tidier and also more ambitious. And I'm going to show him how to be more romantic. And that didn't really work very well. I remember he just was avoiding me. We were fighting a lot. It was very distant. We would have I called it wall-to-wall hostility at our house. And or we'd have these cold wars where there was no talking for days. So really very stressful. And I thought, okay, this is not right. I know this is not how marriage is supposed to be. So I thought, I know what to do. I'm going to take him to marriage counseling, and then the marriage counselor will fix him. And then I can finally be happy.
Right.
So
because clearly it's he that has the problem.
It's obviously him. I was a really good wife, and I was even doing all these things to help him and stuff, but he wasn't really, picking it up. So we went to marriage counseling, and we went for like over a year. We spent over $9,000, and this is a long time ago. It's over 20 years ago now, and
wow.
It didn't help. In fact, I was on the counselor's gray couch when I realized this is not going to work. He's never going to change. This is hopeless. And I'm either going to have to get divorced, or else I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this awful, painful, lonely, loveless marriage. So I decided that I would go ahead and get divorced. But the only problem was that I was too embarrassed. I was too proud. Like I didn't want the loss of status from like, ooh, it didn't work out for them. Or so as a last ditch effort, I thought I'm going to ask women who have been married for an eternity, which is 15 years. In my mind at the time, I've been married for 32 years now. So this is not that long now.
It's double. So you have 2 eternities for you.
Yeah, I have 2 eternities. I know now it just feels like nothing at all. I was going to ask them for their secrets. And so I did that. And the things they said, oh my gosh, they did not make any sense to me at all. Oh, and I also thought they were going to say, oh, you married the wrong guy. You have to marry the right guy. And you didn't. But they totally didn't say that. In fact, I remember one of them said, oh, well, I try not to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it. And I was like, have you got anything else? Because like that didn't even sound right to me, you know. And so, but I thought I'm going to take. There was a lot of different suggestions, and I thought I'm going to take all these on board. I'm just going to experiment, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I'll just throw it out. And I've been doing that, and particularly this one about not criticizing my husband. You know, even if I see him make a mistake or whatever. And I remember just not even that long afterwards, I walked through the door and his face lit up because he was happy to see me again. And I still get moved every time I think about that, because that was I wanted a good marriage so badly. And then I just felt like all this hope, like I'm going to be able to have the kind of marriage I always wanted with the man that I married. So that was very exciting. And I thought, now, you know, we won't have these big fights. And but it wasn't that long after that we were in the car and we did have a big fight again, like a huge blowout fight. Bad. I was saying horrible things. He was saying horrible things to me. And I was, I know what to do, but I realized, like, just knowing it wasn't really enough. I couldn't always get myself to do the things I knew would work. And they weren't super hard. It was just, they were just new and I wasn't used to them yet. So I had this idea, like, okay, I'm going to get my girlfriends that are also complaining about their marriages. I'm going to have them do this with me. I'm going to say, hey, try saying this or doing that. And we had various phrases. I think we have over 20 cheat phrases, I call them, that we use in different actions. And so we had a little support group in my living room, the 5 of us, and they started reporting miracles too. Like one woman said, oh, my husband won the sales contest at work and he took me on the most romantic getaway of our lives. So we were impressed by that. And then this other woman, though, said, she goes, you may not think this is such a big deal, but it's kind of a miracle because we've been fighting about him painting the family room for months. And he got up and said, I'm going to paint the family room. And he just volunteered. He did it with a smile. And she's like, that is a miracle. So I get it, right? Because sometimes you just, anyway, so we knew we were really onto something. And then one of the women said, my cousin in Florida wants to know what we're doing. I'm trying to tell her, but can you just write it all down so I can give it to her? And I was like, sure, I'll do it. And that ended up being my first book. And it was published in 19 languages in 30 countries. It became a New York Times bestseller. It started a worldwide movement. I just was trying to save my own marriage, Dad, but I stumbled onto something else that has been really gratifying and rewarding.
Wow. So what are some of those phrases, or in your book, you talk about these 6 steps or 6 skills you do. What are they? Right.
The 6 intimacy skills. Well, one of them that I think is just my favorite is it falls under the gratitude skill. And we all know, like, oh, you should be grateful every day, right? I think we're all taught that as kids, like, please and thank you. But the way that the phrase that we call, the way we do it is called the spouse fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
And so, so for instance, one of my unwitting spouse fulfilling prophecies that I had as a newlywed was that my husband was a loser pants because he just didn't make enough money. And I thought, like, that he was just not trying very hard. And so really the spouse fulfilling prophecy I had was, you don't make enough money. I would say to him, like, why don't you see if you can get a raise? Why don't you see if you can get a new job? You know, why don't you see if you can get a promotion? And what he heard was, you don't make enough money, right? So that's what I was reflecting to him all the time. And I heard this training from Lee Miltier, who taught a class on the power of auto-suggestion, which is where you say to yourself, like, oh, I ran a marathon, or I have a successful business, or whatever it is you want to be true, even though it's not, you haven't realized that ambition yet. And she had this woman come to her class, and she was sharing about how the woman realized that she was auto-suggesting to her husband that he had a bad temper. So the perception is like, oh, my husband has a terrible temper. But also she realized she was saying to him, that is just like you. You always lose your temper. Here you go again. So the woman went home from Lee's class and decided she was going to just change it up. She thought, what do I have to lose? I'm just going to start saying, that's not like you to lose your temper. So she waited for him to lose his temper. She didn't have to wait very long. And then she used her new line. She said, that's not like you lose your temper. And he just kind of looked at her funny, like, what do you mean? And then their 12-year-old son said, yes, it is, Mom. He always loses his temper. And but she didn't care. She's like, I'm just going to stick with this. What do I have to lose? So she kept saying, that's not like you. And a little while later, they're at a restaurant and the service was pretty slow. And the husband started to fume about it. He was like, you know what? I have a good mind to call the manager over here and let him know how long we've been waiting, because we've been waiting a long time. And then he stopped himself in the middle and he looked at her and he goes, that's not like me to lose my temper, is it? And she just nearly fell on the floor because, of course, he was reflecting back to her, which she decided to focus on, to bring to the conversation. So I heard this and I thought, I think maybe I've got the same thing happening here. So I thought, I'm going to change up my spouse fulfilling prophecy and just start saying, you've always been a good provider, which I felt was true. I mean, it wasn't what I was focused on, but I could find my way there. And then just for fun, I thought I'm also going to start calling him Mr. Moneybags. So right around that time when I started doing that, my husband, he had quit his job, by the way. And so he wasn't making any money. That's how good of a manifestor I am, right? Like,
right, exactly.
Yeah,
It goes the opposite direction.
Yeah, I went the opposite direction. So right around the time
but you stuck on to it. You held on. You didn't give up.
I didn't
to your
give up.
manifesting, right?
Yeah, I did. I just had a sense. It was kind of a horrible realization that I was maybe affecting things too, because I thought it was just like you say, it was just his fault. I'm a good wife. But anyway, when I started saying, you've always been a good provider, you're a good provider, and started saying Mr. Moneybags, he started his own company around that time. And it was very successful. It was more successful than he'd been at previous jobs. He had that company for like 20 years and he really enjoyed it. And so he was a good provider, and he would get a check in the mail and I'd go, oh, look, Mr. Moneybags got a big check, and I think we sushi tonight or whatever. And so I ended up having a completely different experience of my loser pants husband, same man, right? Who's now the man I fell in love with again.
What about wives that wish their husbands were more romantic?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was one of those wives. For sure. So I remember like standing with my hands on my hips, like he's watching TV and I'm like saying, the average couple has sex 2.5 times per week and we haven't done it for like 2 weeks. So I think we should do it. And I thought he was just going to jump off the couch and sweep me away into the bedroom. And like, that never happened. Never happened. So that wasn't working either. And then I also was telling him like, you need to spend more time with me or, try to give me more attention. And oh my gosh, that was just the worst. Because really, when you're saying like, I want you to spend more time with me or give me more attention, it's pretty much proof that he doesn't want to. And that feels really bad. You have to tell him to. And then even if he does, you're like, is he just doing that because I told him to? Because what I really wanted was to feel desired.
Yes.
I didn't want to just say like, why don't you desire me? I wanted him to just naturally be attracted to me like a magnet again. And that's how it is now. Like I'll just be walking down the hall and he'll grab me at the waist and just pull me in for a kiss, or I'll be working on my laptop on the couch or something. And he'll just come and sit like right next to me. And I'm not paying any attention to him, but he just wants to be next to me now. And so it really wasn't through telling him what I wanted him to do. It was through the first indispensable intimacy skill, which is to make yourself ridiculously happy. And of course, that's what I was doing when I first fell in love with my husband, right? Like he was attracted to me because I was kind of this, this woman of fun and light. Like I laugh really easily, and I just was like, we're having a lot of fun. And women are never hotter than when we're like singing, dancing, laughing, smiling, right? Having a great time.
Yeah.
And I had kind of forgotten all that. I was like obsessed with like, oh, we have all these bills and there's this housework and got to maintain the cars. And I just kind of let the grind of life get the better of me. I was resentful towards my husband, and that was just on my face. And it was really repelling. I was more like a porcupine wife. So the way we address it on our campus is the first indispensable step is to make a list of 20 things that bring you joy, that make you just frivolous fun. We call it frivolous, not like this is going to I don't know. It's not 5 fruits and veggies a day, unless, I don't
Uh-huh.
know, unless that really,
It
I
could
don't
be
know.
like getting your hair done or painting your nails. It
It
could
could.
be
Yeah.
going to lunch
Stand-up
with
paddle
girlfriends,
boarding,
like those
right?
things. Uh-huh.
Exactly. Lunch with girlfriends, or just like reading a book on the deck with a glass of lemonade or a glass of wine,
Uh-huh.
or yeah, going out with your friends is a good one. I love to play volleyball. That is
Uh-huh.
the meaning of life, is to play as much beach volleyball as you can. So that's what I do. And, and I thought it was going to be like maybe yoga and green smoothies and stuff, but no,
Which might be for some
it
people,
could be,
right?
it is
Uh-huh.
like a lot of people like yoga. I'll never understand that, but so each list has to be individual, right? It can't, there's no blanket list. It has to be. I have one student right now. She's so cute. She had to go back and think like, what does make me happy? And this is really common. A lot of women, when they get to our campus, they're like, I don't know. I've been thinking about,
20 things?
yeah,
20?
20
You kidding
things.
me?
Right. And they've been like so focused on their kids and maybe taking care of business, right? Or their jobs. And they haven't thought about fun. So this woman, was student, went back. She's like, well, I used to really like twirling my baton in high school. So she got her old baton out and she went into the garage and played, crazy music and was just twirling her baton. And then, and her husband had been saying, he didn't love her and he wanted to separate. Well, anyway, so she started finding her fun again. And they're back together and he told her he loves her. And he bought her a baton that fits her arm. She had her old one from high school. It was too little.
Oh,
And he bought
wow.
her, he was
Uh-huh.
like, she really loves this baton. So he just wanted her to be happy. So he bought her a full size baton. So you just never know what that self-care that's going to make you so magnetic, like the irresistible magnet that you were. That's certainly one of the main elements that contributes to irresistibility. There's a few others too, but that's the place that we start. And it's so fun. I remember feeling this way too, like when my marriage was broken. Like if somebody would have said, well, Laura, what do you do for fun? I would be like, don't you understand? Like my marriage, I'm not going to be happy because my marriage is really broken. And this is pretty common that women are like, no, but tell me how to fix the marriage. Okay, yeah, I have to have fun, fine. But how do I fix my marriage? I was like, no, this is how you fix your marriage. You have
Uh-huh.
to start here. Because without that, you're not going to have the resources to do all the other steps. There's, only 6 intimacy skills. So if you can count to 6, you can do it. But this is step 1.
I like how you're not focusing on the circumstances of your life to determine your happiness. It's like, no, I'm the architect of my life. I know what I can do to be happy. And
Right.
if you want to be desired more by your spouse, well, then be more desirable. Like,
Yes.
yeah, like invest in things that make you desirable, and being happy is definitely a huge aphrodisiac.
It's a huge aphrodisiac. Yeah. And actually, the second intimacy skill is the one that we say is the best aphrodisiac for men on the planet. And it's free and it works fast. And I never knew this. I don't know how. I grew up my whole life, and I think a lot of women grew up our whole lives never knowing the best aphrodisiac for men on the planet.
Is drum roll.
It is. I'll say what it is. And then I know for me, like I still wouldn't have understood if I'd heard this, but it's respect.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
respect.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, Dad's like, yeah,
Of course.
Well, what's interesting is like, I mean, I knew growing up, I always heard, you should respect your husband. That's important. I'm like, yeah, I do respect him, except for the way he dresses and the way he drives. And
And the way he
doesn't
takes
make
out the
enough-
trash or
Right.
doesn't
Yeah,
take out the trash.
exactly. Right. So I was a little clueless. Like I thought I was so respectful. And I really wasn't at all. And I thought like if my husband was talking about a problem at work or something, like I would help him. I would say, well, here's what you should do. Here's how you should solve it. And that's actually incredibly disrespectful because what respect for my husband, he wants to know that I think he's competent, that I think he's capable, and that I expect the best outcome from him. And when I'm telling him what he needs to do, that's kind of the opposite. That's me saying like, yeah, you're probably going to screw this up. So let me just tell you what you should do instead. And so unbeknownst to me, I was really chipping away at the intimacy in our marriage by being so disrespectful. And I have a student, Kathy Murray, she was the CFO of a private school. So she was really good with finances and stuff. And she was trying to help her husband do better with the finances at home as well,
Uh-huh.
because she had that, that ability. But her marriage was in big trouble. They'd been sleeping in separate beds for 6 months, and it was her second marriage, and there was a lot of tension at her house. And so she decided to experiment with another one of our cheap phrases. When she got my first book, and she got a little insight, like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not doing things, to the greatest benefit of my marriage. So her husband came to her and said, I need you to tell me what to do about this cell phone plan. We need a new cell phone plan. So what do you want me to do? And so the cheap phrase that she decided to lean on that day was, oh, whatever you think. Whatever you think. Like,
Because the message is, look, you're an adult, you're smart enough. I trust you'll be able to figure it out. I don't have to solve all your
Right.
problems for you.
That's right. Exactly. And so, and deep down, her husband, Doug, he knew, like, she didn't think that, right? Because she'd been trying to control how he did all these things. So, and he also knew that if he didn't do it the way she thought he should do it, he might get in trouble. So his response was, no, I need you to tell me what you want me to do here. Like, come on, let's not, go down that road. And so she just stuck to her guns. She said, oh, no, whatever you think. And then she added, I trust you. So Doug went away, figured out the cell phone plan, and she was afraid he was going to screw it up. And he didn't. He did fine. And that night he went over to her, and he put his hand on her shoulder, and he said, you were so nice today. And tears just ran down her cheeks, and they slept in the same bed that very night. And she'd been going to counseling every week to complain about Doug prior to that. And by the way, no one ever got happier by complaining about your spouse for an hour a week. That just doesn't work. So,
which is a little tangent, because I want to hear your take on marriage, traditional marriage.
oh my gosh. Okay,
counseling.
yeah. Do you? We'll see.
I want to hear it.
Anyway, so she ended up firing her counselor, and she came to study on our campus. And so that's been 20 years ago. She still gets tears in her eyes when she talks about how tragic it would have been to divorce this man who is absolutely the love of her life.
That would have been tragic.
Yeah.
I like how, you have these little cheat phrases, as you say, whatever, but it's just not the words. You have to have the meaning and the heart behind it too. Like if she
That's
said,
exactly
I
right.
trust you with her words, but her body language and her heart and everything conveyed the opposite, it wouldn't have the same effect. But she had to get herself to a point where she was going to be totally okay with whatever he decided to do with the cell phone plan in order for that to work, right?
I mean, this is what I love about cheat phrases is sometimes you're faking it till you make it. Like sometimes you're just saying the words, and inside your head is screaming like, oh my gosh, he might get us the wrong plan or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it's sort of like the way we teach children to say please and thank you, right? They say, can I have that? And we say, what do you say? And then they say, oh, can I have that, please? Right. And like, really, is their heart in the right place? I don't know. Maybe not. Right. But that's what we're hoping to create, is their hearts in the right place. So these cheap phrases, I do think of them as shortcuts to get my heart into the right place. But I have said the cheap phrase, whatever you think. I've said, oh, whatever you think. Right. And that wasn't the right. That wasn't no.
No.
So you can definitely misuse them, I guess you would say. But it's just so helpful to have them to lean on, because sometimes when you're like, if you're in that fight or flight mode or you're triggered, it's just nice to have something tangible that you can say or do that is going to help you become your best self and be dignified, right? And not turn into a shrieking shrew that
Right.
you don't want to be around yourself, right? Or a nag or a porcupine wife.
Can you give us a little peek on what the third intimacy skill is?
Oh, sure. You know what? So Dan, I want every woman to have all this information. I'm always happy to share all of it. And the reason I have my campus is because I thought, I wrote the book, all the skills are there, everyone's got them great. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Everyone was like me and said, I know what I'm supposed to do. And it's kind of hard to get myself to do them. And so we just find that when we do them together, we're just so much stronger. Right. So that's the reason I have the campus and the group coaching and the community of women that are all standing for marriage. but I am so happy. I want all the information. I give it away on my podcast. I give it away in my books. I give it away on my blogs. And I certainly want to give every morsel of the intimacy skills to the women listening to this podcast too. So, so the third one is relinquishing inappropriate control, or I call it being too helpful. So as wives, a lot of times we think, okay, well, I'm going to help him be more ambitious. I'm going to do his resume. Oh my gosh, his socks are terrible. His underwear is terrible. I'm going to buy his underwear for him. Or he needs to go to the doctor. I'm going to schedule those doctor's appointments for him. And then we start to resemble somebody else who used to do all those things for him.
Yes. No one likes being married to a parent.
No, you're like his mother's mother, right? And men are not sexually attracted to their mothers. And women are not sexually attracted to their little boys either. So it has a really chilling effect on the passion in the relationship. And the one thing that I did get from marriage counseling that was I remember the counselor said to me, I don't know if you realize, like, you're a little controlling. And I was like, controlling? Me? What? Like me? And I'm like, we're here to work on him. First of all, I was thinking about, what are you talking about? But I was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I am controlling. And I was like, okay, what do I do? How do I stop? And that's the part where she was like, I don't know. So she was like, just stop being controlling. I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. So, so it's back to relying on all these, the cheap phrases and actions and things like whatever you think. Because, and when we're being too helpful, it's also a little bit of a distraction from our own lives, right? It's like, I call it being, I can either be on my paper or I could be on his paper. And the only place I have any power at all is on my paper, right? Sort of like when you're a kid at school, it's right. Like, keep your eyes on your paper, right? Like, stay in your lane. And as soon as I'm like, oh, he should do this, or he should dress better, he should, he should stop wasting so much water when he's doing the dishes or whatever, right? Like, the minute I'm there, not only is it kind of stressful and exhausting, but the intimacy goes out the window, because all control is based on fear. If you're not afraid, you don't have to try to tell him, hey, I wouldn't take the freeway right now. It's going to be, the traffic's going to be too heavy. Or if you're not afraid, he's going to forget to pay the taxes. You don't have to say, don't forget to pay the taxes. So it's, again, not expecting the best from your husband. And so what I came to realize is you could either have the intimacy or you can have the control, and you can't have both. It's like light and dark, right? If you want to be in control, well, the intimacy is going to go.
Yes.
And so it all becomes an equation then. Like, do I want the intimacy in this moment, or do I want to control, try to control his parenting, or try to control how he handles the money, or, try to control how much he works, or, and so, anyway, so the third intimacy skill is about identifying your control and asking yourself if it's really a realistic fear. And if it's not, then okay, fine. But what if it is a realistic fear? Is it going to be worth the intimacy that it costs you to try to control it?
That's something to think about. Yeah. And that men do it to women all the time too. It, like, husbands to wives too. It goes both directions. But
yeah.
definitely.
Oh, and I have so many students say, well, I'm not the controlling one, he's the controlling one. And what's so interesting is we're like, yeah, come on in. Because there's a lot of times there's a culture of control, right? Like, I control you, you control me. That's kind of, fish are the last to know they're in the ocean, right? And so, and sometimes it's even, I call it controlling from the back. Like, women will say, like, well, I really have to walk on eggshells, or he'll get mad, and then just the whole evening is ruined. And I understand that. And but really what you're saying is, like, I have to do something to try to control his behavior, and
so that I feel good about myself. Right.
Exactly.
I need to make sure he's okay,
so that I can be
feel
okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so, how would it be instead to focus on, so this is back to step one, right? What would make you ridiculously happy? What is it you're wanting to do? And instead of focus, because in a way, you saying, oh, I have to make sure he doesn't blow up or something, is you expecting the worst of him again. Right. Like,
Right,
and then
right.
people pick up on that.
Uh-huh.
So I remember one woman was saying like, my husband's always really cranky when he comes home from work. And I just, I try to like soothe him and stuff, and it just isn't working. He's really just, it's just kind of a nightmare when he gets home from work. And so she devised a plan. Her self-care plan was going to be, when he came home, if he was cranky, she loves gardening. So she was just going to go out to the garden and start, playing around in her garden. So it happened one day. He came home and he was like, rah, 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 grumpy. And she's like, oh yeah, and she's like, well, I'm going outside. So she did. And a couple of minutes later, she hears the door close. He's right behind her. He's like, what are you doing? You want some help in the garden? Like his bad mood was like not the headline anymore, because he chose something that delighted her. And now they were both having fun together. And it was, couldn't control it, but she sure has a lot of influence over his mood.
That makes sense. Couples sometimes, like I saw this demonstration once where our emotional balance in the relationship is off center. In other words, we depend on our spouse for us to regulate our emotions. So it's like two people standing, a width apart, and they're both leaning forward, but their hands are touching. So it's like forming an A-frame with their bodies.
Yes.
And when you depend on your spouse for you to stay in balance emotionally, you're going to walk on eggshells. But it's like what you said, like step one, do things that, make me happy. That's standing on your own 2 feet yourself. That's being grounded myself, and like being able to be emotionally balanced for yourself, not relying on your spouse to help you stay emotionally balanced.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so powerful in so many ways, because if you think of your life like a car that's going down the road with nobody at the wheel, like you are focusing on what someone else is doing and how they're reacting or whatever, like your life is getting neglected. It's getting ignored. And that's a kind of a unpleasant, lonely, scary thing, really. I remember it. And when you really bring that focus back to your own, how are you feeling? What are you wanting? It's such a source of confidence and restored dignity. I would say too, instead of like losing my mind and shrieking like my mother on her worst day, I'm able to sound like a calm woman, a mature woman who is much more pleasant to be around, even for me, than the one where I was shrieking all the time.
We're almost out of time. Can you share one more intimacy secret?
Oh, sure.
And then we'll leave the rest for our listeners to go get your book and join your program for the rest.
Okay, sure. All right. So, well, there's 2 more. So, one that, another one that I just absolutely love is the skill of vulnerability. And I just remember thinking like, well, why would you want to be vulnerable? Like that's like being weak. And I don't see why anybody, like I'm a able-bodied woman. Why would I want to portray weakness? But it's really not that at all. So for example, sometimes I'll have a challenge at work and I'll think, wait, like, well, how do I solve this one? And I've got 2, competing things that I want to accomplish here. And just being able to go to my husband, and I call it borrowing his brain. I'll say, I want to borrow your brain, because it turns out, oh my gosh, he is so competent and capable and smart, just like I originally thought. And then I didn't think so for a while. And now I think so again. And it's been great to be able to have my husband weigh in on those things. Like I'm a successful businesswoman, but sometimes I just need some support. I need I call it supervision and encouragement sometimes, or I just need to hear his thoughts on how I could do something. And it's amazing. Like he's got my back more than anybody else in the world. He wants me to be happy. He wants me to succeed in the mission to end world divorce. So, and I think I used to think like, I just have to figure these things out myself. But bringing that vulnerability is actually a wonderful exchange, because he wants to be my hero, and me borrowing his brain is sort of like triggering that hero gene. Like he will want to do whatever he can to make sure that I'm feeling supported and I'm getting what I need. And then, so that's like one aspect of vulnerability. I think people kind of think like, oh, what does he have to like rescue you from the bottom of? Well, no, but just as a mere mortal woman, sometimes I'm out of sorts, or it'll take like 2 sisters, 3 best friends, and my husband to like put me right again, right? To just give me the support and the even the listening and just being seen and known, heard and understood, which we all need. But I still to this day find it very scary to be vulnerable. Give an example. I was watching the movie The King's Speech at home by myself in the dark,
Uh-huh.
and my husband was supposed to be out, and I'm crying like the ugly cry because I always cry at that movie.
Uh-huh.
And my husband came home in the middle of it, and I was like, oh no. And part of me was like, I don't want him to see me doing the ugly cry, well, I don't know, whatever. It's just my instinct. I just
Yeah.
I just don't want him to see.
Uh-huh.
And then so he says like, oh, hi, cutie, like he always says. And I'm like, okay, if I don't answer, he won't know I'm crying because it's still dark, right? Like he can't see me. Like, that's totally not working. He's like, cutie, wait, what's going on? And so then he sees that I'm crying, and he just like cannot resist, but just like he has to come in to hug me and comfort me, and just with all this tenderness. And it's just sort of the opposite. I think when I'm in that vulnerable state, I feel kind of repulsive and stupid. And it's actually just the opposite. It's like so endearing and attractive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's intimacy, isn't it? It's like a willingness to be known, even the ugly parts,
Absolutely.
but not the best parts. And
It is. And now
uh-huh.
that I live with it, like I find it, I would be impossible not to live with it. Like I would really miss the intimacy that comes from that kind of vulnerability. So it's something I'm always striving to do. And we have various cheat phrases and things. I'm just kind of like touching the surface of each of these 6 intimacy skills today. There's so much more to it. And there's a couple of cheat phrases that we use along those lines. But they're just, and it's called The Empowered Wife. My books and programs are called The Empowered Wife because that's how I end up feeling at the end. I feel empowered. Like I'm not having to just suck it up and try to act like I have it all together when I'm just a mere mortal woman who gets hormonal or stressed or overtired. Sometimes you need a nap, right? It's just really nice to be able to relax into being myself.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Anything else you want to share with us today?
Well, I actually, I love to, if I could just do the formula for expressing your desires in a way that inspires.
Yeah.
Okay, right. If I could just share that. Do we have time?
I want to hear
Okay.
that too. Yeah. The
All right.
formula that inspires rather than, what did you say?
It's expressing your desires in a way that inspires.
Expressing your desires in a way that inspires.
Yes.
Right.
And the origin of this is that I was terrible at this. I think a lot of us have it trained out of us, right? As kids, like you're like, mommy, I want this, I want this, I want this. And they're like, okay, stop it, right? Like just forget that. Maybe think about other people besides yourself all the time or whatever. And so that was certainly me. Did not have any concept. And so here's this sad, embarrassing story of when we were just kind of a new couple. My husband took us to Hawaii on this romantic getaway. And I was super excited because I thought on the first day, we're going to go to the beach because I wanted to go to the beach. And I was just really excited about that. And so the first day we're there. And instead of saying, I want to go to the beach, I said, so what do you want to do today? And he goes, well, I think it'd be cool if we went to see a volcano. I was like, a volcano. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So, but I didn't want to fight. I wanted to be close. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to suck it up. I'm going to go see this volcano, even though I have no interest in going to see a volcano and I really want to go to the beach. So we get in the rental car and we're driving for a while and you don't see a volcano. You see little molten rocks on the side of the road. And so I started to get kind of upset, like this is such a waste of time. And he goes,
when we could be at the beach.
We could be at the beach, right? Now he doesn't know that, but I'm thinking that's what I mean. So, but he realizes like something's up. So he says, is it, is everything okay? Is something wrong? And that's when I went, did you think this would be fun? Because I don't think it's fun at all. I think it's stupid. And I want to go to the beach. You even asked me what I wanted to do. So this is really dumb. And like, so he saw a volcano. All right.
Just the wrong kind of volcano.
Not the kind, right? Poor guy. All he knows. Like, took her to Hawaii. Like, what happened? So, and I always feel sad for that earlier version of myself because she did not know how to say what she wanted. And if you can't say what you want, you are never going to get what you want. If you don't honor it, how can anyone else honor it?
Right.
And do you know what he did? Even after I behaved so badly, he took me to the beach. We never
Oh.
did see the volcano
Oh.
because, except for me, because he turns out he just wants me to be happy. And so, and I mean, I did this for years too with like, I remember the dishes, I would say, John, this kitchen's a disaster, right? Which is just a complaint. It's not, he didn't know how he could make me happy. I thought he was going to jump up off the couch and do the dishes, and that never happened. And I did this. Now I feel like he probably could only hear John, blah, 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 blah. He probably couldn't even hear anything after that because I don't think we can hear us when we complain. And then finally one day I said, John, I would love a clean kitchen. And he goes, okay, I'll do the dishes. And he did. And he's been doing them ever since. It's been over 20 years. I never do the dishes because he knows it makes me happy. So if he knows how to please me, he's gonna do that. And this was something I just was not aware of, that men are wired to make their wives happy. And
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And they all, I mean, I've asked thousands of men, how important is it to you that your wife is happy? And they all say the same thing. They say, oh, it's the most important thing, or it's everything, or in the UK, they say it's imperative.
Brilliant.
So this is how you trigger his hero gene with this formula. And it's, you could start out with I would like, or I would love. And then you go to the final outcome. So it's a clean kitchen that I want, or it's new boots, or I want a tropical vacation, or whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter, big, small, it doesn't matter. And then you try to release the expectations around it. And that gives him the chance to be your hero. And he's going to want to, if you give him the chance.
That's pretty inspiring. So we talk about requests versus demands. And I think that fits in line with that too. You're making a request instead of a demand or a criticism about something, but it's also letting your wants known instead of just hoping they'd read your mind, or, that too.
It's not even a request in a way. Like I would make a small distinction because I like that formula better than, because if you make it a request, you could say, you might come out like, would you do the dishes, right? Or would you clean the kitchen, instead of I would love a clean kitchen. And love does attract love. So, and he doesn't, I think one of the issues, I know one of the issues we had in our marriage was that he felt like my employee, like I was so bossy. And so if I was saying, would you do the dishes, he almost, it kind of robbed him of his sense of autonomy, which every human needs. And it was somewhat emasculating. So for me, I prefer expressing desires over even, sometimes I'll make a request, like, will you hand me the towel or something like that. But for the most part, I try to stick with the desires. This is more inspiring.
I love that. That's a great formula. That's
Thanks.
excellent.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
What's the best way for people to find you?
Well, right now we have something really fun going on, which is the Adored Wife Roadmap is available for free on my website, which is at lauradoyle.org. So you just go there and download it. And it's got like the 6 steps and also the 3 mistakes that women make trying to get his time, attention, and affection. And it's all free.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Get Your Marriage On. And if you did, we would love it if you would take a few seconds to give us a rating on iTunes and to share the show with your friends. They'll thank you for life. Once you've done that, you can head over to getyourmarriageon.com for more resources about today's topic and to download our amazing marriage apps. Now go get your marriage on.